In today's Making Their Case, David, more terror detainees from the prison at Guantanamo Bay could be headed to the United States.
In a victory for President Obama, House and Senate leaders have agreed to allow Gitmo detainees to be transferred to the mainland, potentially clearing a path for closing Guantanamo Bay, something President Obama said he would like to do by the end of the year. But still not resolved is whether or not the Obama administration can hold detainees indefinitely without charging them. A group of retired military intelligence and law enforcement officials sent President Obama a letter warning that U.S. security would be threatened if detainees are moved to the United States. Quote, prisoners transferred to U.S. prisons would turn those prisons and the nearby civilian populations into high-probability terrorist targets. Based on past experience in Guantanamo, they would also expose prison staff to unique threats, physical risks, and legal liabilities. But late last month, another group of retired generals and admirals held a forum on Capitol Hill to argue in favor of closing Gitmo. Of the 223 detainees still there, roughly 140 could be brought to the United States to face trial, a military tribunal, or prolonged detention. So are detainees in the United States a threat to national security, as so many people seem to fear? Here to make their case, Peter Slutsky, a blogger on DoubleSpeak and the Huffington Post, and Amanda Carpenter, reporter and blogger for the Washington Times. Amanda, let's start with you. U.S. federal prisons have all kinds of horrible murderers and rapists and people that are a threat to society, but they don't tend to get out. So why is it a problem to bring some of the detainees from Gitmo into those same facilities?
Well, the problems are more from a legal perspective. There's so many unknowns. Once you bring a detainee on U.S. soil, they're considered a U.S. person. And so the question there is, do they have constitutional rights? And they have to sue. They could potentially sue to find out, because nobody knows this. It is a legal gray area. It is why Guantanamo Bay was set up in the first place. So they could say, listen, you're holding me. You didn't have a warrant to search me and you picked me up in Afghanistan. Why are you holding me here? And so then there's a whole legal showdown. Maybe they go to court, maybe they don't. And then what happens after, they get sentenced? Where do they go then? Their home country probably isn't going to take them. So nobody knows the answers to these questions. Greg Craig, the White House counsel, was expected to come up with some answers on this. Now it appears that he has not, and he's stepping down. So I don't think the White House knows either.
Peter?
Well, I mean, David, there's a couple issues here. One is one that you brought up, which is the actual security issue. And, I agree that obviously having these people on our soil is a security risk. But as you said, these supermax prisons, they're used to housing bad people. So it can be expected that if these folks do come onto U.S. territory, U.S. soil, the prisons will be ready. The other piece of it is the legal piece that Amanda brings up, and it's important, and we'll learn more about it as the process unfolds. But it's very important to go back a little bit and realize that a lot of the problems we're facing today are because a lot of these legal issues were not taken into consideration throughout the 8 years that the Bush administration was housing people in Guantanamo Bay, and that has just created an entanglement that the Obama administration is trying to untangle at the moment, and we're seeing that play out. Amanda,
to Peter's point, the Bush administration succeeded in prosecuting 3 detainees in more than 7 years. You, I know, have heard the arguments that what this does to this country's image. With 3 and 7 years, how do we move forward from there if they are not to be moved to the United States soil? And we should point out there are Republicans and Democrats against bringing these detainees to this country.
Well, there has to be some kind of consensus from the legal perspective, and somebody, and maybe this goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, somebody has to figure out what their rights are and how to move forward with a prosecution that everybody can agree with. And then, once they're a U.S. person, do they have constitutional rights? Can they have access to the Fourth Amendment? Until that's hammered out, it will be a security risk, because, we won't know if they'll eventually be let go in the United States if they happen to win that trial.
And Peter, to the point of this administration, I mean, you've got the president who made this pledge. Might they have done better or different legwork on the front end of this, and also try to get better support from the Democrats in moving forward with this? Because it doesn't help when you have people within the own party saying, I don't want these people brought to this country.
Well, clearly it's been a messy issue for Democrats. It's been a messy issue for the White House, and we've seen it kind of play out in the media. I think that Obama did the right thing by making the decree right at the beginning of his administration, right when he took office, saying that he would close Guantanamo. I don't know if I would have ascribed a one-year timeline to it, but we're seeing it all play out. It's as we can tell by the debate on both sides, there's a lot of different dynamics. One of it, of course, is the not in my backyard NIMBY factor, which a lot of these members of Congress are finding, which is, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican, your constituents don't necessarily want these people. But that's where the process is, and I think we're going to see it play out, and the White House is certainly working as hard as they can behind closed doors with Congress on both sides of the aisle to come to some kind of agreement on the issue.
Peter Slutsky and Amanda Carpenter, thank you both for coming on today. We appreciate it. And Cameron, this is one of these issues where President Obama promised during the campaign he would close Gitmo, and then got into office and realized it's a bit more complicated than some of the sound bites on the campaign.
And it's